Today we're gonna make a delicious and fresh Tuscan quiche with a garbanzo flour crust. What's really awesome about this quiche is that the crust is high in protein and fiber, as it's half of the flour is made from a bean flour. And the quiche itself is very high in protein. We're gonna take it down a notch with the cheese from what you're used to, and we're gonna use milk instead of cream. So it's gonna be a whole lot lighter, and it's gonna be full of protein and fiber and completely full of deliciousness. For our garbanzo bean crust, we're gonna get started on that. I'm gonna mix up the garbanzo bean crust, and then I'm gonna press it into the pie pan, and we're gonna put it in the oven so that we can get that nice and crisped up before we put our filling into the quiche. All right, so for this garbanzo crust, we're gonna do a cup of garbanzo bean flour and a half a cup of almond flour. And garbanzo flour is just excellent. There's so much fiber in it and protein. It has a very distinct flavor though, so when you are to cook with garbanzo bean flour, it tastes a whole lot better if you mix it with a different type of flour. We're mixing this with almond flour, so that also makes this a gluten-free crust. Woo! Throwing flour around here. Okay, and then we're gonna do half a cup of almond flour. And this is really just gonna neutralize the garbanzo flavor a little bit. Like I said, garbanzo flour is it has a strong taste that isn't so great on its own. But I'm trying to keep this crust grain-free and gluten-free. All right, so the next thing you want to add into there is salt, a teaspoon of baking powder, half a teaspoon of pepper, and a teaspoon of garlic. If you were watching your sodium, you might want to go with about half of this. Baking powder will give it just a tiny bit of rise. We don't want too much in our crust, but it'll keep it from being super dense. All right, now I'm estimating about a half a teaspoon with this, and to be real, it takes a lot of work for me to get pepper out of this grinder. So I probably won't have a whole half teaspoon in here, but if you've got loose pepper, half a teaspoon is about what I would put in here. The garbanzo bean flour taste, it's really good to add a good amount of garlic. All right, so I'm going to mix these together so I can add the wet ingredients. If you're watching at home, I hope you have a mimosa for brunch today. I forgot to buy champagne, so this is a what I'm calling a Florida style mimosa. I put some pineapple Bud Light seltzer and orange juice in here. It's okay. It's not as good as a traditional mimosa, but it's fine. Okay, so last weekend I made this quiche and it was super delicious. I did a different type of quiche, and in my garbanzo crust I put coconut oil. This week, since we're doing a Tuscan quiche and olive oil is so prevalent in Tuscan cuisine, I'm going to use all extra virgin olive oil instead of coconut oil. And so I'm gonna add a quarter cup of olive oil. Okay, now the last ingredient we put in this crust is water. Okay, I'm gonna back up 1 second here because I forgot to preheat the oven. And that's gonna be important here in about 5 minutes when I'm ready to put the pie in the oven. So 375 is what you'll wanna heat that up. All right, so I've got 1/3 cup of water here, but I'm just gonna add just a little bit, mix it and see if I'm able to form a dough from that. In it now. And look, we got a nice dough formed here. I'm going to pull out a pie pan and I'm going to spray it with some oil. You just want to coat it evenly and make sure you get up the sides a little bit because we're going to be pressing crust into the sides as well. When you're done, so you can see I went up the sides about an inch and a quarter, and the bottom is about an 1/8 to 1/4 inch thickness. All right, while I wait a moment for the oven to finish preheating, I'm gonna refill my beverage and we'll get started on chopping up the vegetables that are going to go into the quiche. Why are you staring at me? Rick is over here just staring at me like a creep.
You didn't do what you said you were going to do.
What did I say I was going to do?
Top off your beverage.
I am. I got to finish it first.
But
that's not topping off.
I was waiting for you to hit pause or something, yes.
Why would I do that? Just finished off the drink there. And of course I've got my very, very beautiful Rixwood cutting board coming soon as he finishes his website. These are beautiful. He works really hard on these. And what is the wood in here again? This is Purple Heart, this here, and then dark maple. Dark walnut. Hard maple. You can see it's gotten a lot of use here. Oh, Ricky, you got one of the new ones? Here, let me see it. Here's one of the new unused ones. It's very beautiful.
I want one.
I want that. Thanks, Ricky. All right, so the oven is preheated. I'm gonna go ahead and throw my pie crust in there. All right, so the vegetables that are going to go in this Tuscan quiche, we're going to do half of a diced onion. We're going to wring out some canned artichoke and roasted red peppers that I have. And the reason we're going to wring it out a little bit is because we don't want to introduce too much water into the quiche. We want it to cook well and still be nice and fluffy. Oh!
Wet ass quiche.
We're playing with the WAP acronym again over here, but it doesn't fit with the quiche. It worked with the pizza. I have children here, I can't cuss at the moment, but I'm gonna dice this up and I'm gonna try my hardest not to cry because I cry just about every time I cut onions. We've got our, I'm just gonna show you what we're putting in there. We've got some sweet roasted red peppers, this and the artichoke I got canned. So I'm gonna spill it all over myself apparently. I'm gonna wring these out when I measure that out, and I'm gonna dice that up as well. And then I've got the spinach, it's gonna go in there as well. So, and tomato. These beautiful tomatoes on the vine. We're gonna garnish the top with these tomatoes. Hey Ricky, you wanna do me a favor? I forgot to get fresh rosemary from the garden. I forgot to grab fresh herbs, so I'm sending a child to go fetch it. Okay, so, all right, so we're gonna use half of an onion. This is a really big onion, but I don't think we can go wrong with putting the whole thing in there. I'm going to dice up 3 cloves of fresh garlic. I put fresh garlic in just about anything savory. And it's kind of hard to go, I think it's hard to go overboard with the fresh garlic as long as you're cooking it. Good job, Ricky. So Ricky got me some. I'm gonna need a little bit more though. Can you get me some more? Smells good. We're gonna garnish the top of this quiche with fresh rosemary. It's gonna look beautiful. I'm gonna make some nice round slices because I'm gonna lay these tomatoes on top of the quiche. It's gonna look really pretty. And since the tomatoes are on the top, the oven will essentially make them kind of like sun-dried tomatoes. At least that's what I'm hoping. Of course, they're not sun-dried, they're oven-dried. Close enough. 1 tomato, as long as you got a medium tomato, should be sufficient enough to top off this quiche. Get as much tomato out of this as I can. There we go. Alright, so our 2 ingredients that we need to wring out a bit are going to be the canned roasted sweet peppers and artichoke hearts. No, it better not. No, there is a little bit of salt. There's no oil. You might be able to get canned artichoke hearts, low sodium. Now I'm going to wring out some more liquid. I need a little more. bit of muscle into it so you can get as much liquid as possible. All right, now that I've wrung it out a bit, I'm gonna scoop it back onto the cutting board and I'm gonna roughly chop the artichoke and roasted peppers. And the last vegetable that we're gonna throw into there is spinach, but since it's already ready to go, I'm not gonna pull it out just yet. But we have everything diced up, and we still have 7 minutes on the oven for the crust to harden, to cook and get nice and toasty and crispy for us to top with all the veggies. Quiche crust is ready, so I'm gonna take it out of the oven. I'm gonna leave the oven on because we're about to throw it back in there here in a minute. As you can see, it's gotten golden around the outside. Might have gotten a little bit more cooked than I'd like right there, but that's just fine. So if I were you, I'd watch it from 15 to 20 minutes. You wanna watch for the edges getting nice and golden, and that it's cooked and it's not still squishy and doughy. So this is ready to go. Leave this here for right now while we mix up our egg. So for this quiche, you're gonna need 6 eggs. I'm gonna crack them all in here and then use a fork to stir it so I can break up the yolks. Okay, and you're gonna wanna put a half a cup of milk in there. We're not doing cream because we're not gonna make it that heavy, but the milk will help whip up the eggs and give it a little bit of creaminess. So half a cup of milk, and then I'm gonna add my Tuscan seasonings in there, and that's gonna be fun. All right, so this is gonna be a nice mix of Tuscan specific herbs. We are gonna put a teaspoon of salt in there, about a half a teaspoon of pepper, and then the Tuscan blend is going to be basil, oregano, a little bit of thyme, fennel. Now this is really iconic in Tuscan cooking, so we're going to put a little bit of fennel in there. And then we're going to top it off with some fresh rosemary that I picked from outside. And we're not going to mix the rosemary into the egg. We're going to sprinkle the top of it once we've layered everything into the pie. I just want to give it that nice herb look. Now I'm going to mix this all together, break up the egg yolks, vigorously mix it so it gets nice and fluffy. And what I do first is look for all the yolks and just break them apart. That's why I like putting it in one of these deep liquid measuring containers, for lack of a better word, because when I'm whipping it, there's less of a chance it's going to spill. And get as much of a uniform color as I can, blend the whites and the yolk together. And then I usually pick through it to see if I can find any more yolk that hasn't been mixed up. Okay. right, so we've got our egg and herbal mixture. And now all we have to do is layer the vegetables onto the crust, pour the egg in there, and then we're gonna garnish it off with tomato and fresh rosemary, which I still need to chop up. I forgot about that. But then once we're done with that, we can throw it in the oven for about 30 to 35 minutes. And you'll want to keep it on the temperature that you had it at, 375. That's the temperature we cooked our crust, our garbanzo bean crust at. I'm going to add the fresh spinach first so that it's got the veggies and all the eggs to weigh it down. About 2 handfuls. Add everything but the tomatoes. That's going to be garnished on the top. I'm basically just going to layer it in here. And it might look like we're just making a veggie pie right now, but I assure you the egg will get down there in the crevices and cook the vegetables, and it will be delicious. All right, 2/3 cup feta. This is a cup measuring tool. I'm gonna just eyeball 2/3 cup. Okay, which I think is about the rest of the container. There we go. And you can always go a little lighter with this cheese. This is actually about half the amount of cheese that other recipes have. If you get a nice, you can always try something like goat cheese too. The stronger the flavor of the cheese, the less cheese you need to put in it. So you can watch your fat that way while still getting a little bit of delicious cheese. All right, it's time to pour the egg in there. I just accidentally licked raw egg. That was... Ensure the spinach is down in there. All right, and finally we can layer this with our tomato rounds and some fresh rosemary. And one thing I love about topping this quiche with the tomato is it essentially will get, not exactly, but a little bit of a sun-dried or oven-dried tomato taste. Just gently press those down in there a little bit. And then add a little diced fresh rosemary on the top, and then we're going to stick it in the oven. Sprinkle that on there. All right, I think that was about a teaspoon of fresh rosemary. All right, now it's time to put it in the oven. It's gonna take about 30 to 35 minutes, but I'm gonna watch it along the way. Delicious herbal Tuscan quiche with a garbanzo crust. Yeah, here, Claire wants to see it. Don't trip over my cords. About the middle of the oven. All right, so our quiche is finally ready. I had to add about 10 minutes on top of what I had predicted. So this took 45 minutes to cook. But what you want to do is you want to check it with a toothpick to make sure it comes out clean. And now it's ready to go. It's not jiggling anymore, and the toothpick came out clean. It smells super amazing, and I'm just really excited to cut it up and serve it. I've got my mom and my family here, and they're super hungry. They've been waiting for this quiche to be to be done. So I'm gonna cut it up now. See how it turned out. All right, ooh, look at that yummy quiche. Yeah, that's what I'm talking about. Yes, I'll get you some, Claire. They all swarm in, they're ready to eat.
Oh my god, it's so good.
Is it? Cool, because I wing a little bit of this. Is that a word? Wing? I winged. I winged. Wang in the past tense. I winged this just a little bit. I didn't wing it completely, but because I made a quiche last weekend, but it had different vegetables in it and different herbs. So I'm happy to hear that this turned out. I have a child raising their hand right now. What's up, Quinn? You want some? Yeah? And this is a recipe that I seem to have no problem getting the kids to eat lots of vegetables with.
I love vegetables.
Well, I know you love vegetables, but Mr. Quinn is not always very good with vegetables. But he, yes, you can speak. What are you gonna say? They can't see you from there. Please don't make it weird. He wants to say hi.
Hi.
Tell him how much you love vegetables, Quinn.
Make sure to just see. Yeah.
Whatever.
Stage fright. Child stage fright.
I know it. Wait, what do you want?
Quinn says to subscribe to my channel. Being on YouTube is like the coolest thing to the kids. It's like super cool to be a YouTuber. 8-year-olds think it's the coolest thing. Let's see what I think. I'm the harshest critic of my own food. I'm gonna eat it right out of the. I'm just gonna eat it right out of the pan. What do you think, Claire? It's good? You're zooming in on my face.
Everyone's watching.
Yummy. Yes. Mmm. Heck yeah, those herbs worked great. Tuscan blend of herbs. Delicious. Hey, that turned out really good. All right. And with that, I'm going to let you guys go. Follow my YouTube and my blog because I'm going to be posting the recipe on both of those platforms. And again, this is a really healthy quiche. It's lighter in fat, filled with protein, tons of fiber, grain-free, gluten-free, vegetarian. It's amazing. And so you guys should try it out as well. I will talk to you soon. Have a great Sunday.